People in the self-development space, we are very keen on this idea of living a life we love. We don't like to waste time on things that are not aligned with our values or potential. Instead, we're always planning, setting goals, visualizing our future, and overall trying to invest our time in a way that's going to bring the highest satisfaction and fulfillment on our time invested long term. And that's all well and good, but I found that even those who pride themselves on being self-aware often fall prey to one of the biggest thieves of joy in life: regrets. And when I wanted to figure out why we make certain decisions or choose life paths even that we eventually regret, I found a very interesting common theme. So if you're someone who would also like to live a more meaningful life where you actually follow up on and do the things you know you're supposed to be doing and avoid doing things that are not aligned with who you truly are, then this one's for you. So let's dive in. See, most people think their regrets come from failures. Launching businesses that failed, trusting the wrong people, trying things that didn't work out, going for certain outcomes and not succeeding, etc. But based on my experience, that's rarely the case. In reality, regret for most people stems from not pulling the trigger when opportunity rises, not approaching when they see someone they like, not acting on the plans they make for their lives. And the biggest one is not playing their own game. Now, I'm going to explain what I mean by that in a second, but there's this quote by Earl Nightingale that says, "Most people tiptoe through life only to safely arrive at their deathbed." Isn't that fucking sad? But I love this quote because if you look at society, that pretty much sums up most people today. And if you take a step back and zoom out even more, we can safely say that the reason we are playing the game of life so carefully is because of one thing. Instead of living super consciously, we live life trapped in our unconscious agendas. Now let's unpack what that means. To understand why you're conflicted when it comes to taking action on the things you know will result in a better life experience for you once you achieve them, you first need to understand that your mind is not on your side, at least not all of it. See, there are several layers to our consciousness. First, you have your conscious mind, also known as your ego, which does want a quality life. That's the part of you that says, yes, I want to make more money. Yes, I want to travel around the world. Yes, I want to build meaningful relationships and have a massive positive impact on others. But you have another part of your consciousness, which is your unconscious mind, which wants the exact opposite of that. It wants to keep you in place, in safety, because its only purpose is to help you survive, not thrive. And here's the key. Whatever you survived in the past is the exact condition it's going to keep you in. Because even if it was unpleasant, at least it's proven to be survivable, so you will always crave that. That's why you can move even thousands of miles away from home. If you never address the underlying structure, your unconscious structure, it will keep recreating the same circumstances, same income level, same toxic relationships, same everything. The way it typically unfolds is the following. You start out as pure creative energy. You have everything you could ever ask for, everything you need in your mother's womb. And then you're born, and suddenly you no longer have everything. And not only that, but you also realize that there is a way to be in this world if you want to get what you need, basically. Now, I just gave you a one-sentence overview of the whole individuation process, which, by the way, I fully break it down inside my free course, inside my free Skool group. So I'm not going to waste time with that right now. But if you're curious, go check it out. But the point is, as we're growing up, we get wounded, and we slowly start to organize our whole identity around one of 6 major beliefs. Now, there's actually a few more, but most people can recognize themselves in one or even more of these basic 6. And these beliefs are, I am not good enough, I am not worthy, I am not perfect, I am not capable, I don't belong, or I'm insignificant. And as you're growing up, you start to believe that based on the programming you receive from your family and the people around you, and that becomes your identity. But later, you will have a very weird relationship with these programs. Because on the one hand, you believe them, right? You believe that you're not good enough or you're not worthy the way you are, etc. But on the other hand, you don't want to accept that they are completely true, so you also develop a compensating strategy to prove that they aren't. Let's say your dad had high expectations of you, or you only got attention when you achieved something as a kid. If that's the case, you will start to believe, I am not good enough. And as you grow up, you will build your whole identity around this belief, And you will want to prove that you are indeed good enough through your achievements. Or you might think, I don't belong. And you start believing, if I can just be successful, I will finally be accepted. Let me share with you a quick story I heard from Alex Hormozy the other day that gave me the idea for this video in the first place. He said for years, his only drive to become successful came from trying to prove himself to his father. In his college years, he did everything his dad wanted him to do. He finished Vanderbilt University in 3 years, became the president of fraternity, he won writing awards, everything. But he soon realized that he didn't want to continue going down that road. He didn't know what made him happy, but he knew what didn't. So he packed all his stuff, drove across country, and that's only when he called his dad to tell him he quit to pursue his gym business ambitions. Now, not surprisingly, his dad disapproved of his business dreams, and they barely spoke for like 5 years after that. Then one day, his dad calls him out of the blue and says, I'm sorry. And Alex's response was, I didn't care about your opinion 5 years ago when I left, and I don't care about it now. His dad fired back with, well, we will see how long your success lasts. And so what could have been a wholesome moment ended up being a pretty ugly exchange. But here's the lesson. Hormozy won. He made more money than his father ever did. He beat him at his own game. And that's when he realized. He said, I never even asked myself, what game am I trying to win? And see, that's one of the biggest traps in life. He only set up that structure and kept chasing more and more and more money and success to prove to his father that he was indeed good enough, that he was indeed worthy. And when he finally beat the goal he set, he realized he was in the wrong game the entire time. And before we move on to the next point, I've actually seen it in people close to me as well. A female friend of mine had this relentless drive to succeed. She always had straight A's and a work ethic other students could only dream of. But for her, it wasn't really about passion. It was about her dad. Because he was super demanding, never satisfied. And when she finally graduated, hoping that he would be proud, after the ceremony, all he said was, well, what am I exactly supposed to congratulate you for? The B? Because she had straight A's in her degree, except for one B, right? And that fucking crushed her. Because later she realized she didn't even care about the degree that much. She just wanted his love. She just wanted the approval. And we all do that to some degree. We make decisions and we shape our lives around the hope that maybe, finally, we will be enough in someone else's eyes. And if you don't pause to question that, that's when you one day wake up with everything you thought you wanted and still having massive regrets about your choices. Now, the reason we gotta be extra careful is because this mental virus, so to speak, can affect us both in the macro as well as in the micro timeframes. And what I mean by that is, if we don't operate from our superconscious awareness, which by the way is the third layer of our consciousness, it's our higher self, which is at all times connected to all information out there, all wisdom, without being bound by space and time. If we don't do that, we can easily set up our life trajectory in a way that is trapped in our unconscious agenda. Meaning we make long-term choices that are meant to complete or fix the way we feel incomplete about ourselves. That's when you choose a high-status career, for example, or you work 70-hour work weeks, not because you want to or because you deem it's necessary towards your true end results, but because you feel like you're not worthy enough or you're not good enough without it. But it also works in the micro perspective, meaning in our day-to-day lives. So let's say that you are aware that you have this tendency to compensate for your belief about yourself. Well, that awareness alone is not a full solution yet, because your unconscious might try to, not might, it will try to pull you back within your daily choices as well. If you already have a business, for example, it will try to sabotage your goal daily by telling you not to post, not to reach out, not to put out your offer, not to create presentations, do a market research, or whatever else you need to do to progress in your business. And it's hard to describe, but I'm sure you felt it before, where especially as you get close to achieving what you want, you kind of have this itchy feeling of not feeling like carrying on. Because if you did, and you actually achieved what you set out to achieve, you would finally have to accept that you are indeed worthy, or capable, or significant. And if you build your identity around the opposite belief, that means that identity would have to die. Now let me ask you, How much do you think identities like dying? They don't. That's why you will feel the pullback anytime you go for something new or get close to achieving what you want. And that's what creates regret, both short term and long term. So how do you avoid all this? Well, you need to become conscious about the game you're playing. You want to ask yourself, am I creating or am I compensating? Am I chasing this goal because I want it, I truly want it, or because I need it to feel enough? And I'm not going to lie to you, that's not easy to do. Because the longer you've lived, the stronger your programming is. It's like water for the fish. When the fish lives its entire life in an aquarium, it doesn't know, it's not aware that there's a whole ocean out there, that there's a completely different way of living life. But you got to do that regardless, because if your goal is fueled by a need to prove something, it doesn't matter how much you achieve, you will never feel the way you want to feel, because there's always another level, another person to impress, another milestone to hit before you feel like you can finally relax. It never ends until you stop and say, I already love my life. I just choose this end result simply because I love it. That's it. That's the only reason you should go for something, because you would love to see it created in the world. That's how you leave the problem-solving structure behind and step into a creative structure, by focusing on creating amazing, beautiful end results simply because you love it, not to solve a problem or to fix yourself. Now that's as far as the long-term trajectory is concerned, the macro perspective. But let's be honest, even when you do that, your unconscious mind will still try to pull you back on a day-to-day basis. What do you do with that? And I mean, the only solution I found for that is you remove the resistance. You choose a true end result. You measure where you currently are in relation to the end result that sets up a structural tension, and it will also trigger all the resistance you have towards taking the next aligned action, the next obvious action, and that's where the superconscious recode comes in. The recode is a technique I learned to connect to my own superconscious field, and by giving a few commands, I can actually shift. I can go back to when the belief or resistance was created, and I can actually shift or remove it so I can then take the next aligned action without fear of judgment, without the fear of being humiliated or rejected or whatever type of emotion I'm working with. And if you can relate to that, if you'd like to live a life you love and live without regrets, and by now you also understand what needs to happen in order for you to have it, I'd like to help you with that. So you'll find a link to my free Skool group where I created a free course and broke down everything you heard about in this video in way more details and action steps. And if you're someone who is serious about changing your life and knocking down your limitations, then feel free to book a call so we can chat. I'd love to hear your story, because anyone that's been in the personal development space for years and still not living the way they would like, I love sharing this method with them, because this is it. I mean, if you can gain clarity on what it is that you would truly love to create, find out what action steps will lead you there, and then remove your resistance so you can take that action without any fear whatsoever, what else could you wish for? If you have the knowledge to do that, you can create anything you'd like. Business success, romantic partners, a healthy and vital body, you name it. So I'll put a link down in the description for that. Feel free to check it out. And I'd love to find out how I could best assist you in creating an amazing life. That's it for now. I'll see you in the next one.